Welcome to TradeTheMBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 27th of January. And of course, you can see the market is reacting to the trade war that took place over the weekend. Colombia refused to accept the repatriation of illegals entering the U.S. And Trump then turned around and said, you're going to get 25% tariff now. And in 1 week, it'll be 50%. And it took all of 10 hours for the Colombian government to back down. Now, this is throwing the market into a tizzy because they know the minute that he starts doing the same thing to other countries, well, they may not back down as quickly, and the repercussions of that. Now, you get the talking heads that will say stupid things like tariffs will cause inflation, blah, 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 blah. This is a dumb topic. It's stupidity. It's a leverage tool because, as you saw, the Colombians capitulated. Now, other countries maybe not so, and then people will say, well, but the prices will go up for us. Not necessarily, because then you have to pretend that everything's a vacuum and that other products aren't available. And this is the fallacy of that inflationary construct, because just because another product has moved up to parity or a relative real market cost of what it takes to make something in America is not the same thing as saying it's not available other places at a better price. So don't get caught up in that stupidity at all. Now, just because we know a thing doesn't mean the market is going to respond the same way. Of course, the intelligent ones do, but what it represents is chaos. And chaos means uncertainty, and that is an opportunity to take your profits, particularly when we were at that 100%, which we could see was happening right at the same time we were getting a DOC break here above green, the breakdown there, and now you can see short-term buyers finally getting their reset. But this becomes problematic if that shakeout dips here as it is, and you can see, look at that, dip below the red line as we start the day. Will it stay there? We don't know. We're approaching the 50% marker on it. Not a bad thing. So we'll see how that plays out. But overall, way this looks, support's going to have a little bit of difficulty right at that particular point. But I think with this degree of an oversell, you're going to catch a lot of people off-footed. That's going to create some more dynamic selling back and forth. And it gets a little complicated, but at the end of the day, uh, it's not catastrophic in any way because we're really way ahead of where growth factor and everything else is. And that's despite the optimism, of course. But it's going to take some time to wrangle these things. Moving quite quickly, but still, it's going to take a while. And it really is going to depend on where oil prices move. Without that, there is nothing to really speak of. And you can see mimicking readings here, identical pretty much from a NASDAQ standpoint. As far as the main elements, slight variation within the DOC because you still have, the MBI here, you still have rising white within that, but you're approaching the 23% where the S&P is approaching 50%. So subtle difference. Not too dramatic from that standpoint, but just filling in basically the pump that took place prior to. Treasury is too early to see how that's going to play out, but I don't suspect anything. The Fed has pretty much been silent because I don't think they have a freaking clue as to what to do with the situation as it is. It just gives them all sorts, and they're going to wonder whether they have to throw liquidity into the market to prevent things from sliding all over the place. I don't. They're really got a problem because they're sort of stuck. They can't really raise rates. They want to cut because they understand the deficit problem and what it relates to. And is that going to change anytime soon in the coming weeks? And are we going to start actually getting real numbers coming out of BLM and things like that? And that will be really an interesting one to see how that plays out. From an oil standpoint, though, still holding relatively high, and as long as it's up in these areas, we'll see if the Saudis respond to Trump's plea and whether or not. The reality is the U.S. is sort of hamstrung with what Biden did at the end of his term in that. So, how long it will take to sort that out, it's going to be some months. So, unless there's some kind of bonus liquidity thrown in by OPEC for whatever reason, it's problematic. The euro, surprising jump from Friday there, but again, this realistically shows that the euro is in a world of hurt because as soon as that sanction threat starts rolling around, they're not going to know how to react, and they're going to be completely dumbfounded. Now, this is just a pullback because obviously with the market following an opportunity for them to catch up a little ground, at least in their minds. But again, it's a fake run. It's not going to have any depth at all. Let's turn to gold. Had a nice move. It was all the way at the peak. A little bit of a trade-off here, and of course that's going to happen when you have the market sell off dramatically. People have to move funds around. You expect the same thing from Bitcoin in that, and yeah, pretty much identical. And that's a function of when surprise hits. It has its ripple effect throughout. Same here from an ETH standpoint as well. Um, and not surprising, ETH has had much rougher go than Bitcoin for sure, and I think that we've talked about the dynamics of why that is, but it does present some interesting uh, moves when one starts to move irrespective of the other. It's the same thing we see with the Nasdaq and the S&P. One catches up, one fades. If we look at it from the broader 50K standpoint, you can see we had the sell actually took place on Friday, early on as the magenta started fading, and then literally by midday we got the crossover. You had NBI white leading, so the continuation, any shock? No, because there was no change, no resolution going into the end of the day. Most people don't have the stones to stay with the signal until it changes, but clearly doing that. Definitely fitting right into everything we expect. We had this positive extreme on the 50K from right back here. It's pretty close to middle range of it. There's still a little more room to go to the 59.97 range to fill the positive extremes there. And that would be consistent. Now from a lower side, you have to go back even further, back over to here, and that's down at the 58.92. So that would cause people to freak out a bit. Too early for that right now, but you can see intraday what it looked like. Fairly straightforward stuff, and then gap down after that news, and European session really hasn't been able to recover from it. In fact, they're scared to death over there. So, well, which is over here. Anyway, that's the long and the short of it for now. As always, trade well. Anything relevant, I'll put it on the Skype chat. Have a good one.